Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with another faction focus video, this time focusing on the Beastmen, a faction which, let's be honest, through the history of Warhammer Fantasy has gotten the short end of the stick. But this is a brand new edition, this is Warhammer the Old World. The Beastmen have had a proper look over by the developers, and I'm happy to say that the Beastmen do seem like they're in a much better place, either by changes to their faction or changes to the core rules, which have really been desperately needed. I'm not going to lie about that. So, with all that being said, we're going to do what we've been doing, so talking about everything, and once again, I won't be going over every single page, purely out of respect for Games Workshop, as they were kind enough to provide this stuff early, but it won't be too long now until you can check out the rules for yourself, and finally dust off that Gorgon that you've been wanting to paint up for a while, but knew that back then it was pretty worthless. You can actually use them now. So without further ado, let's begin. Alright, so we're going to talk about the Beastmen roster, and we're going to start off with the characters first. Up to 50% of your value may be spent here, with the first being 0 to 1, Beast Lords, Great Bray Shamans, or Doom Balls per 1,000 points. There's a little bit of a limit here, but there's a reason for that too. And then you can have as many Wargors, Bray Shamans, Gore Balls, and Centaur Chieftains as you want. There's a few good options here, because obviously you get the whole range of the Beastmen spectrum here, and it's further expanded upon when we jump into the roster proper. So with Core, it's at least 25% of your army as per usual, and this is +1 Gore Herds, and then finally you've got Ungore Herds, Chaos Warhounds, Razor Gore Herds, yes, as Core, and Tuskor Chariots. It's absolutely insane to see that as Core. But it even gets better. If your general is a Beast Lord or a Wargore, you may have one unit of Bestigors as a core choice. Or if you want to go really fun, which is something that I am working on, it's a reason why I haven't shown off the Beastmen army yet. If your general is a Doom Bull or a Gore Bull, you may take one unit of Minotaurs as a core choice. It's very easy to do that 25% as soon as you put in like 3 or 4 Minotaurs. Once we go into special, things start filling out a little bit more, so you've got Bestigor Herds, Harpies, Minotaur Herds, Centaur Herds, Dragon Ogres. Yep, we're not really getting new units, but what we are getting is some very big beasties from the Chaos Warrior roster, Razorgore Chariots and the Cockatrice. Chaos Ogres can also be acquired here, which is pretty interesting, actually. And then we get some more fun rules. So, if your general is a Great Bray Shaman or a Bray Shaman, you can take one Jabberslife or a Cygor as a special choice. And if your general is a Doom Bull or a Gore Bull, you can take one Gorgon as a special choice. Now, this is a big thing because, I'll let you guys know, I'm working on a list right now, which is literally just 4 cow. As many cows as possible, like literally just loads of cows. So a Minotaur's core, then some Minotaur's special, putting a Gorgon down here, getting some Cygors involved too. It's been pretty fun to write. And when we go into rare, we've got Dragon Ogre Shagoffs, which is pretty cool. That's another thing from the Warriors of Chaos roster. The Jabberslives, really iconic unit, Gorgons, Cygors, Chaos Giants, and then to add more units to the Beastmen Bray Herds, we've got Chaos Trolls and obviously then Chaos Spawn. So the thing with this is like all their rules can be found in the Warriors of Chaos roster. It makes sense for the Chaos Trolls in all honesty, and same thing as the Spawn. I'm actually quite happy to see a lot more big heavy hitters. You're getting a lot more monsters, which does mean that you're going to be able to play around with your list a bit more. If you want to have in some Spawn, it works quite well from what I've been working on myself. But yeah, it's a little bit more fleshed out. There are some things that I would have liked added into it, which we'll talk about a bit later. But yeah, overall, I really do like this roster. Alright, so now we've got to talk about the special rules, and the thing is, there is actually quite a lot for the Beastmen. They're getting a lot of attention this time, which is really nice. We'll start off with Blood Greed. So, whilst Frenzied, this model has a +2 modifier to its attack characteristic, rather than the usual +1. However, because of this, when they do a pursuit roll, they can only use 1d6 rather than the usual 2. Now, you might think that's a bad thing because of the pursuit roll, but this is something that you're going to get in Minotaur Herds. They've got free attacks baseline. Then you get Blood Greed, it adds a little bit more. Then you start adding in, maybe an additional hand weapon. You're going to be doing a lot of attacks, dude. Pair that with Minotaur characters, and yeah, I don't really think that you're going to have too much of a problem there. Then we got Blood Rage. So when testing to see if a unit becomes subject to Primal Fury, this unit passes its leadership with any roll of a natural double, and it will also become Frenzied. So it's actually quite good. And if you've lost Frenzy before, you'll actually get Frenzy once again. We'll talk about the Primal Fury stuff in just a second anyway. Bullgores is the next one, which means that impact hits caused by a model with that rule have an armor-piercing characteristic of -1. Again, quite good. Enscrolled weapons, yes, you will get enscrolled weapons here too. It basically just gives you magical attacks and armor piercing -1. So it's not just Warriors of Chaos that are going to benefit from this, you're going to get this here in the Beastmen roster too. However, it is also very important to note that if a model is using two-hand weapons or any other sort of weapon, this rule does not apply. Which I think is a bit of a shame, because, I mean, additional hand weapons, enscrolled weapons kind of fits. We've got Foe Render next, which is, while subject to Primal Fury, your hand weapon carried by the model has the special rule of armor-piercing characteristic -2. There's a lot of armor-piercing stuff. As you can tell, I'm trying to fit everything in one page so it's just more consistent with you guys, as I had some people asking for that after the last one had too. But yeah, let's carry on. So we got Drunken now, and this is during the start turn or sub-phase of each of your turns, roll on the Drunken table for each unit with a special rule, and this would be for stuff that isn't frenzied currently or not engaged in combat or fleeing. And yeah, this is basically for your Centaurs who like the tequila shots a bit too much. 1 is Unsteady, which means that they'll be subject to random movement, d6 + 2. On a roll of a 2, 2, 5, you'll be able to get nothing, so you can actually control them as normal, but on a roll of a 6, they're drunk. And basically what this means is that they're subject to Frenzy. It's only for that turn though, so you'll have to roll again, and if you've lost Frenzy, you will regain it. So that's pretty cool. Overall, I mean, it's Centaurs, right? Like, these have always been kind of a bit of a meme-y unit, and I'm all for it. Again, really big fan of Centaurs, so I'm glad to see them getting a little bit of love and not having just loads of bad modifiers. Mark of Chaos Undivided is a thing, so yeah, your Beastmen will have marks, which is pretty interesting. I am a big fan of this. It's pretty basic, but it does help reroll any failed Fear, Panic, or Terror tests. So yeah, I mean, that's going to make your Beastmen a little bit better, isn't it? Alright, the big one here, Gaze of the Gods table. I know, surprising, the Beastmen actually getting attention from the Chaos Gods. Yeah, they're going to be able to get some bonuses, which is really exciting. I'm actually really happy about this. So let's talk about actually getting attention from the deities. So during the command subphase, you can pick a character with this special rule to be able to roll a d6, and this is the results that you can get. On a 1, you get Damned by Chaos, which gives you Stupidity. If you already have Stupidity, you lose -1 to your leadership. On a 2, you're able to gain +1 modifier to your initiative characteristic, and this is until the start of your next turn. On a 3, you get Iron Skin, and this allows you to have, for 1 turn, a +1 modifier to your toughness. On a 4, you get Murderous Mutations, which gives you 1 plus to your weapon skill to a maximum of 10. All of these have to a maximum of 10, by the way, but it's for the remainder of the game. On a 5, you get Dark Fury, which gives you +1 attack, and that's again to the remainder of the game. And finally, you've got Apotheosis on a 6, which again, for the remainder of the game, you get 1 modifier to your strength and 1 modifier to your leadership. All of it to a maximum of 10. But yeah, I mean, this is really good for Beastmen. It's actually really, really nice to see. There is a little bit of a risk with a 1, but pretty much everything else is a bonus, either temporary or permanent. So yeah, can't go wrong with that. We're still not done yet, which is absolutely amazing. You can see how much attention the Beastmen are finally getting. So when this unit's combat is chosen during step 1.1 of any choose and fight combat subphase, it must take a leadership test. If this test is passed, well, that means that you can reroll any natural rolls of 1. Which is pretty good if you've got a lot of Beastmen, and yeah, you're going to be taking a lot of Beastmen here. The next thing is Razor Tusks, so during a turn in which it's charged, the armor-piercing characteristic of a Tuskor or Razor Gore's tusks is improved by 1. This doesn't include the chariot or its crew, but it includes, well, pretty much Tuskors and Razor Gores, which is pretty good. And lastly, we have the Quickening Storm. So a model with this special rule has a ward save of 5+ against any wounds suffered from magic missiles or magic vortex spells. In addition, if a model with this special rule or the unit it belongs to suffers 1 or more hits from Storm's Call, it becomes quickened. A quickened model has a +1 modifier to both its initiative and its attack characteristics, and it lasts for pretty much that turn. And just for context, Storm's Call is a magical missile bound spell that you can get from the Dragon Ogre Shagoff, and that itself can hurt you too, but also provide you with some benefits. So, I mean, it kind of works out. So yeah, that was pretty much, 6 minutes talking about special rules, which is quite impressive considering just how much there is. I'm really happy about this. It does actually look like the Beastmen are going to get a lot of love and attention, and that means that you're going to be able to run them without feeling like the joke of Warhammer Fantasy. And there'll also be another reason, which we'll talk about once we get into the pros and cons. Alright, we're jumping into the magic. So we've got the Lore of Beasts with the Beastmen once again, 3 spells, and it works with the same system as everyone else. You'll have a wizard, and that will have a natural lore, one of the core ones, which will be demonology, dark magic, or elementalism. If you don't like the spells that you've managed to pick up because of the rolling system, you can switch anyone out for any of these spells, which in their own right are pretty iconic when it comes to the Beastmen. The first one is Viletide. This is a magic missile, casting value of 8+, range of 15 inches, and the enemy suffers 5d6 strength 1 hits with no armor saves allowed. Other saves can be taken as normal, however. It might not be the best because, I mean, you know, it's still strength 1, but when you're throwing off so many attacks, you're bound to actually get a wound in. The next spell is Devolve, which is a magic missile, once again, casting value of 8+, range 15 inches. And the effect is the enemy must take a leadership test. If they fail that, well, by the number that they've lost, they need to take those wounds, which, yeah, pretty good. There's a few items that you can take that can also remove enemy leadership for a little bit. So, yeah, you could potentially do some decent damage here. And finally, we've got the Mantle of Gorok. So, an enchantment, value of 8+, range is on self. Until the end of this turn, the caster gains +d6. Sorry about that, there's some siren going on. But yeah, you get a +d6 to your modifier of your strength and attack characteristics to a maximum of 10. However, if you roll a 6, you gain a wound. Now, you might think that this isn't too good, but, you know, Bray Shamans, well, Great Bray Shamans at least, have 2 attacks natural at weapon skill 5 and strength 4. It's not too bad, honestly. If you can get like a 5, you're good to go. And the fact that the Shaman itself is fairly decent in melee combat, especially since the Bray Staff itself can be used as a great weapon or as a defensive weapon to give you an armor value of 5+, yeah, you wouldn't have to be too worried about actually putting it into combat. Put it on a chariot and it's going to even be better. Alright, so what exactly is new for the Beastmen? Well, they don't have a lot of new units. What they do have is units from other factions that have come to them too, which I think is perfectly fine. So Dragon Ogres, Dragon Ogre Shagoffs, Chaos Ogres, and Chaos Trolls are now available to the Beastmen. And yeah, this adds a bit more larger creatures. Dragon Ogres are very nicely paired with Dragon Ogre Shagoffs, obviously. Chaos Ogres gives you a decently large armored unit. There's one thing that is kind of curious and I've had to ask. So if I get a response from Games Workshop regarding this, I'll update a pinned comment down here in the video, which is regarding Chaos Ogres and Chaos Spawn. You see, everything in the Beastmen roster can take the Chaos Mark of Undivided. However, when it comes to certain things like the Chaos Spawn and the Chaos Ogres, it says to look at the Warriors of Chaos list. Now, does that mean that they're able to take Marks of Chaos? My assumption is yes, and I've asked some other creators with early access and they've said, yeah, that kind of sounds right too. So if that's the case, Chaos Spawn are going to be infinitely more valuable to the Beastmen, which would be a really nice push. So I hope so. I mean, overall, it's nice to have Chaos Trolls. It's one of the things that you can expect. Same thing with Dragon Ogres. There are stray Dragon Ogres living within, you know, the confines of the Empire and so on, just kind of hidden away and sleeping. So you can use that as the whole roleplay aspect of it. Plus, I mean, it's a big monster. They do a decent amount of damage. It's nice to see more monsters, honestly. If anything, there are a few things that I was kind of hoping we'd see new. And even then, it's not really new. It's just kind of returning from previous supplements, really. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. Generally, yeah, no problems with the Chaos Ogres or anything else for that matter. The more monsters available to the Beastmen, the better. Alright, we're going to talk about the pros and cons because I feel like that's quite important when it comes to the Beastmen. Well, we've been doing it for every faction, but the Beastmen have finally gotten some attention, and it does actually feel that way. So, one pro is literally Beastmen finally got attention. If you're new to the Warhammer Fantasy setting, never played the tabletop and so on, the Beastmen have always been kind of considered a joke towards the natural ranking of pretty much all the factions and so on. They're usually pretty down low. This actually feels quite good. You do get a lot of freedom here, like being able to take Minotaurs as a core option is really nice there, even if it's just one. It's really nice seeing a lot of special being turned into core for the purpose of if you bring a certain character, and the same thing for rare turning into special, meaning that you can bring more. There's a lot of large monsters here, and you might be wondering, well, that was always a big problem, right? Well, I am very happy to say that they finally nerfed cannons. Yes, cannons now will be doing around D3 damage rather than D6. Sometimes there's a better one like a Great Cannon which does D3 plus 1, but yes, they will not snipe out your Gorgon, your Cygor, or any other big stuff that you have, like those 2 Jabberslives that you might have that you haven't painted up because they were never a point to paint. I'm talking more about myself here than you guys, but I'm pretty sure that you guys have some big monsters. So cannons being nerfed means that stuff is going to be a bit more viable. Yes, you can be shot by multiple cannons and so on, but that means that they'd be wasting shots on one thing. If you're bringing multiple monsters, and considering that these monsters aren't really that expensive, you're going to actually get into combat now. It's amazing. I'm actually genuinely surprised. One con is no marked units. Yeah, I know they've given Mark of Chaos Undivided, and they say that they're children of the gods, but it would have been nice to see the return of Pestigors, Korngors, Zangors, and Slangors. Maybe that happens in the future. Keep in mind that obviously Arcane Journals are a thing, and I'm really happy with what they've done with the Tomb Kings and the Bretonnians, but it would have been really nice to see those models come back. Maybe as an updated cast would have been beautiful, because it doesn't seem like anything for the Beastmen is going to get updated. Yes, Age of Sigmar has its own versions, and I would infinitely prefer to use the Age of Sigmar versions. Well, we only have right now Sangors and Slangors. Yeah, only those 2. But you know, God-Touched Gors were always a big theme. The big thing and the big meme regarding the end times is like, oh, they finally updated the Beastmen to have Marks of Chaos, and that's what caused the world to blow up, not Manfred. It was the Beastmen actually becoming good. Overall, I'd say that the Beastmen are in a much better place now. And I've been writing a lot of lists. One thing that I've been going again is literally just full cow, right? Minotaurs everywhere, and Cygors and Gorgons, just literally cows. Because why not, right? One little minor thing, honestly, is you can't have a Minotaur BSB, which is a bit of a shame, because I would have loved the idea of having a Minotaur BSB. In my honest opinion, it would have been great if the Beastmen would have gotten like the Orcs and Goblins treatment, where you could have different sub-factions in your main book, right? So Orcs, Black Orcs, Goblins, or Night Goblins, they're all part of the same race, they're all part of the same army, but you could go full Night Goblin, or full Orc, or full Goblin, and have your theme like that. And that's something that I would have loved to see in the Beastmen, just being able to go full Centaur with a bunch of new Centaur models, obviously, or full Minotaur, where you would have the BSB option, and that pretty much is it, because the standard Minotaur herd has pretty much all the weapons that you want. Again, with a pro, it's, yeah, the Beastmen finally feel like a proper Warhammer Fantasy faction, so, yeah, very, very happy. I know I've repeated that like twice, but it's really important to say, because, yeah, the Beastmen look really cool, visually and just stylistically, very, very interesting, and, yeah, it's nice to see them up and running proper now. But with all that being said, let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. There's going to be another faction focus video today. We're almost done with this series, at least for the core factions, and then I've got some other videos planned out whilst we're waiting for the eventual legacy stuff, which I'm really curious to check out myself. But yeah, have a good day, guys. I'll see you all again very, very soon.